discussed in this book were of wild birds unencumbered by devices. I describe a relationship with wild birds that is available to almost anyone, anywhere. My watching birds of a particular species was usually stimulated by an anomalous observation that sparked a question. I followed leads as they presented themselves, waiting for dots to connect and make an interesting pattern or a tentative hypothesis, which then might lead to a tentative revelation. The leads, the twists and turns, made adventures that I have tried here to preserve in written and sometimes literal sketches. Most of the material for this book was gathered in or near a clearing in the Maine woods next to the cabin where I now live. Large windows in all directions make this home a live-in bird blind. My outhouse with an almost equally panoramic view serves as one as well. The clearing where the cabin stands, an island in the midst of forest, has an abundance of berries, seeds, and insects not found in the closely surrounding woods. As a permanent resident with no radio, television, or other electronic distractions except email, I engage with my avian neighbors, visitors, and vagrants, and keep daily records throughout spring, summer, fall, and winter. I hope, in one wild bird at a time, to reveal details of birds' everyday lives as seen by direct observation. And while I hope also to capture something of the adventure of the chase, this book is less about research results than about the reasons I do research. It is aimed to be as realistic as science demands, and imaginative enough to suggest possibilities that science allows. 1. Flickers in the house. My summers spent observing birds seemed to be winding down. Most of them had found mates, made nests, and incubated their eggs. Feeding the young was now their main preoccupation. I had finished a marathon observation of a pair of tree swallows. My Phoebe had this year not attracted a mate. The blue-headed vireo's story was finished for the year. One nest I was watching in a balsam fir tree had fledged 4 young. The other had been abandoned after a gradual decline in the number of eggs in the nest. The sapsuckers with their super drum on the apple tree had stopped drumming and were now incubating or feeding young. I was starting to feel relaxed enough to sit and write, but there are always distractions. Next to the window of my cabin is a paper birch tree. It had grown at the edge of the old cellar hole with collapsing stone foundations that I rebuilt to put my cabin on. Each year, it hosts aphid colonies tended by red ants that live in the cabin's roof space. A highway of ants up and down the white bark attracts a pair of yellow-bellied sapsuckers. Just 3 meters from me as I sit on the couch writing, these beautiful woodpeckers unobtrusively and silently lap up ants from a trail with traffic both up and down. Hearing a woodpecker tapping from the cabin wall opposite the birch tree wasn't particularly surprising to me. I assumed one of the sapsuckers was temporarily distracted from the ants and had started sampling wood. Strangely, though, on several occasions when I opened the door to look, I saw instead another woodpecker fly off, the northern yellow-shafted flicker. After a time, I noticed a suspicious rhythmicity to the tapping. Flickers feed on ants too, but as far as I knew, they foraged for them on the ground. A day later, on June 8th, I got out of bed at 4:30 a.m. to write up some raven observations from the day before. A little later, I heard the same rhythmic tap, 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 tap from the same cabin wall. Surely the noise would stop soon. At 6 a.m., it still had not let up, but my patience had, so I gently opened the door to peek around the corner and again saw a flicker leave. This time I noticed a small hole almost through the wall's outer pine boards. The flicker had apparently been making a nest hole, but the outer and inner cabin walls are separated by a 10-centimeter gap, so if the flickers, I assumed it would be a pair, penetrated the outer board, they would meet a bottomless space with no place to put their eggs. The next morning at 5:10 a.m., I heard a rustle on the wall, then a light tapping